Muy buenos días.
Well, good morning to everybody, and thank you very much to the members of the press for coming to this press briefing. I'm here with the European Commission representative, Normans, and we're here to explain and highlight the importance of this informal ministerial meeting on housing and urban development that we're holding here today in Gijón to talk about both issues. The first thing I'd like to underscore, and I've done that during the first working session, is the importance of this meeting. As you're aware, there's nothing specific in the framework of the European Union that deals with these issues of housing and urban development, but it's been thanks to the initiative of the Spanish presidency of the EU Council and the ministry that I head that today we're focusing on housing and urban development in the European agenda, and therefore at the highest possible level of discussion and debate. All of the representatives of the European Union member states are convinced, and we have agreed that housing and urban development are priority issues for our citizens, and as we have said on a number of occasions, are a priority for our government. It's housing. The Spanish urban agenda represents a new social contract with citizens, a new contract to build together and promote gender equality and social and employment cohesion. We have the Housing Act. This was approved a few months ago. It's the first act in the history of the democracy that protects the public housing stock. It promotes protected housing and limited rental prices, ensuring control and a reduction in rental prices in specific areas. It promotes renting at affordable prices with significant reductions, and I hope that we will avoid empty housing to promote the offer and control prices. As you know, we have implemented the affordable rental plan, and the objective of this plan is to promote at least 180,000 houses. More than 70,000 houses are already being promoted, and we've got this affordable rental plan in line with all of the different programs that we have. I'd like to mention as well all of the assistance we have available for the more vulnerable groups of society, and also for young people who have found it very difficult to access affordable housing. We have also spoken about the law on architectural quality. We need to recognize architecture for economic and cultural development as well. We've talked about the various challenges and solutions and measures that we are all implementing in our respective member states. For this government and this ministry, during this legislative term, these issues have been a priority and will continue to be a priority. In this regard, and as a result of this debate and the proposals made, we have compiled the conclusions in the Gijón Declaration. This is a declaration that the European ministers are using to reaffirm their commitment to promote these policies for access to housing for all of our citizens in cities and towns. We need to make these more sustainable and more inclusive. This declaration focuses on housing and the environment, be it urban or rural, in which the housing can be found. And of course, there has to be a relationship with the environment. We need to incorporate sustainability and social inclusivity criteria. We need to focus as well on the quality of architecture and building. I am delighted with the outcome of the working sessions. We've shared ideas during the first session on continuing to promote policies to promote access to housing for our citizens. This is a problem that affects the entire European Union. And of course, there are specific characteristics in each of the different member states. All of the ministers have agreed on the need to adapt housing policies to the different contexts. As I was saying, we need to focus on the most vulnerable groups, young people, and people who find it harder to access housing. But we need to focus on middle-income households as well. We've spoken about structural measures, and we all agree on the need to reinforce the housing offer, particularly with regard to difficult market sectors. We've spoken also about the problems related to short-term rental and the need to provide a framework to regulate this issue. We've also highlighted that, given that we're often talking about different responsibilities or divided responsibilities on different levels of public authorities, we need to ensure fluid coordination between those different levels of governance to ensure the success of these measures. Furthermore, we've spoken about how the building sector and the housing sector, which is a very important sector when it comes to our economy and our labor market, these need to adapt to housing policies, and they need to meet those criteria of sustainability and adaptation to the environment. We also spoke about the need for public-private cooperation to ensure the success of these programs and measures. Now we need to hold the second working session, during which we're going to be talking about cities and towns and best practices when it comes to urban development. We'll be talking about working in a coordinated fashion in order to respond to the global challenges which have a direct impact on our towns and cities. These include climate change and social inequality. We're also going to talk about the role of national urban policies to deal with these challenges from a holistic point of view. In Spain, we have the Spanish urban agenda, and I will be presenting that to the other member states. This is a pioneering urban agenda, both in terms of its content and drafting, and also the success of implementation of this urban agenda. And that has played a leading role in local and regional governments. Also, during this second working session, we will take the necessary steps in order to be able to continue implementing the urban agenda for the European Union, approving during this session and ratifying all of the agreements that have been worked on during the meeting that was held in Granada by the Directors General. Those agreements and recommendations that were dealt with at the Granada meeting can be summarized by the fact that the 18 priority themes for the European Union urban agenda continue to be valid. We've selected issues relating to water and decarbonization, heating and cooling systems, in order to consider new possible partnerships in the future, and also think about proposing issues for the EU urban agenda. These need to be seen as challenges, that is, urban planning, urban spread, urban transition, healthcare in our cities, neighborhoods, and villages, because we need to ensure resilience, the importance of cultural heritage. So far, this has been a very successful event, but as I said, we're going to be continuing with the second working session after this press conference. I'd like to note that we have implemented this initiative to debate at the highest possible level these issues, and I'd like to note that the next presidency, the Belgian presidency, which will be continuing after the Spanish presidency, has undertaken to hold an informal housing ministers meeting on housing and urban development. And therefore, I think that all of the efforts that we're making are important when it comes to responding to that important challenge of ensuring that all citizens have access to decent, affordable housing, be it in cities, villages, or towns. They need to be increasingly sustainable, resilient, and inclusive. Thank you very much. And I'll give you the floor now, Normans, to talk about what's happened at this event. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister, and thank you for this wonderful reception in Gijón. The European Commission fully supports the Spanish presidency's initiative to hold this meeting because we do believe that the issues of housing are close to the heart of every European citizen, and it needs to be dealt with in the context of the territorial development, both on urban and rural areas. We are happy to see the Gijón Declaration, which particularly stresses the necessity to deal with this issue in an all-inclusive way, particularly paying attention to the needs of the parts of the marginalized communities and involve everyone in the decision-making process, so participatory approaches. The European Union in this context has, of course, important regulations, but more so the European Union budget will be providing important support through the cohesion policy programs and the recovery and resilience facility, notably in Spain, but in fact in all European Union member states. And this is important that this investment is done in a qualitative and efficient way to allow our citizens also vis-à-vis different priorities to gain better access to the social housing and to different other needs. We also will be providing at the EU level different initiatives to support member states, particularly the Affordable Housing Initiative. I wanted to mention it will create concrete affordable housing districts in many European countries. And we also have launched the new European Bauhaus Initiative, which is mentioned in a declaration where concretely we announced 14 cities, one in Spain as well, which will receive support from the EU budget to actually implement the new European Bauhaus-type projects. And this initiative is built on the three principles: sustainability, aesthetics, and inclusiveness. We also will be launching further technical assistance to both rural and urban authorities to implement this initiative. I just wanted to say that we fully subscribe to the conclusions that the issues of housing and urban development needs to be dealt with in the principle of partnership. This is what the European urban agenda is about. This is about working together, different levels of governance, the European Union, national, regional, local, urban, and rural authorities, and we need to find the solutions in the spirit of cooperation and partnership, and the European Commission will be supporting all this in the years to come. Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you very much. Thank you. If you have a question, please identify yourselves. And this is the press briefing for the informal ministerial meeting on housing and urban development. So please stick to the topic when you ask your questions. Thank you very much.
¿Preguntas?
Sí, hola, buenas.
Good morning, Jaime Martin from EFE. What budget do you have for the implementation of all of these policies? And are you going to be increasing the funds for these policies? Well, as you know, we've made a huge effort, not only in terms of the legislative field. I talked about the approval of our first law in Spain, but also on a strategic level and in terms of economic resources that we've made available to ensure that we can achieve these objectives, we have multiplied by 8 the budgets from the People's Party, and for 2023 we've got some 3.4 million euros for housing policies, 2.4 million for the state plan. In addition, there are all those funds that we have assigned to housing construction programs, affordable housing programs, and renovation programs. They come from European funds. We've already transferred 3.4 million euros to the autonomous communities and city councils so that they can promote these policies. And I think that this policy has enabled us during this legislative term to lay the foundations for all of these housing policies. But during the next legislative term, which will be commencing very shortly, we've got the investiture shortly, and then the new government is going to be focusing on housing policy as a fundamental pillar of our government. That's what the president said, the acting president said, and we're going to continue making available resources in order to ensure that these policies can continue and ensure that citizens have that access to housing.
¿Alguna pregunta más?
Are there any other questions?
No? Pues muchas gracias.
Thank you very much.